One of the most important truths about human relationships is that value is often fully understood only after it is no longer constantly available. This is not because people are intentionally ungrateful, but because human nature has a tendency to become familiar with blessings and overlook their significance. What is present every day can begin to feel ordinary, even when it is extraordinary. This principle explains why many men do not immediately recognize the depth of a woman's worth until they experience life without her consistent presence. Think about how people treat things they use every day. Rarely do they stop to appreciate them. They simply expect them to be there. The same thing can happen in relationships. A woman may provide emotional support, encouragement, loyalty, wisdom, patience, understanding, and stability. She may stand beside a man during difficult seasons, believe in him when others doubt him, and help him become a better version of himself. Yet because these contributions are given consistently, he may begin to see them as normal rather than valuable. The danger of familiarity is that it can hide greatness behind routine. When someone becomes accustomed to receiving something, they often stop examining its true worth. They enjoy the benefit without fully appreciating the source. This is why many people do not realize what they had until it is gone. A wise woman must understand that her value does not decrease simply because someone fails to recognize it. Diamonds do not become less valuable because someone mistakes them for ordinary stones. Gold does not lose its worth because it is buried beneath the ground. Value exists independently of recognition. Recognition may come later, but value exists from the beginning. Many women spend years trying to convince a man of their importance. They work harder, give more, sacrifice more, and lower their own needs, hoping he will finally appreciate them. But appreciation that must constantly be demanded is not genuine appreciation. True appreciation comes from understanding. It comes from realization. It comes from seeing clearly. Sometimes a man can only see clearly when the constant presence he depended on is no longer there. When the daily conversations stop, he begins to notice the silence. When the encouragement is gone, he begins to feel the weight of challenges he once carried with help. When the emotional support disappears, he starts recognizing how much strength he was receiving without even realizing it. The very things he overlooked suddenly become impossible to ignore. This is not about creating distance as a strategy or manipulating emotions. It is about understanding a reality of human behavior. People often gain perspective when they are forced to experience contrast. Light becomes more appreciated after darkness. Peace becomes more appreciated after chaos. Loyalty becomes more appreciated after betrayal. In the same way, a valuable woman is often more appreciated when her absence reveals the space she occupied in someone's life. What many men discover during absence is that not every woman possesses the same qualities. They may assume they can easily replace what they lost, only to discover that character is rare. Beauty may be common, attention may be common, attraction may be common, but genuine loyalty, emotional maturity, wisdom, kindness, patience, and commitment are uncommon qualities. When a man encounters relationships that lack these qualities, he begins comparing those experiences to what he once had. Suddenly, the things he considered ordinary become extraordinary. Suddenly, the woman he thought would always be there becomes someone he deeply misses. Suddenly, he realizes that her value was never in what she gave him materially, but in the atmosphere she created around his life. A strong woman does not need to force this realization. She does not need to argue her value or constantly remind someone of her importance. True worth speaks for itself over time. Reality becomes the evidence. Experience becomes the teacher. This is why confidence is so important. A woman who understands her worth remains secure, even when others fail to recognize it immediately. She understands that appreciation delayed is not the same as value diminished. She knows that her purpose, identity, and significance are not determined by another person's opinion. The most powerful position a woman can occupy is one of self-respect. She continues growing, learning, building, and pursuing her purpose regardless of whether someone else fully understands her value. She refuses to chase validation because she knows that genuine recognition cannot be forced. And often, while she is moving forward, focusing on her growth and protecting her peace, The man who once overlooked her begins to understand something profound. He realizes that her presence brought stability, her words brought encouragement, her loyalty brought security, her belief in him brought confidence. He recognizes that she was adding far more to his life than he ever acknowledged. That is the lesson absence teaches. It removes the noise, the routine, and the familiarity that once clouded perception. It allows value to stand alone and be seen clearly. And when that clarity arrives, many men finally understand that what they considered ordinary was actually one of the most valuable gifts they had ever been given. One of the most overlooked realities in relationships is that familiarity can hide appreciation. Human beings have a natural tendency to adapt to what is consistently available. What was once exciting becomes normal. What was once treasured becomes expected. What was once appreciated can slowly become overlooked. This is not always because people are intentionally ungrateful. It is often because constant access creates comfort, and comfort can sometimes blind people to value. Think about the things people use every day. They rarely stop to admire them because they have become part of their routine. Yet the moment those things disappear, their importance becomes obvious. The same principle can operate in relationships. A person can become so accustomed to your kindness, support, loyalty, and presence that they stop consciously recognizing how much those qualities contribute to their life. This is why many people make the mistake of believing that doing more will automatically produce more appreciation. They think that if they give more attention, more affection, more sacrifices, and more understanding, the other person will finally realize their worth. But appreciation is not always produced by increased effort. Sometimes appreciation is produced by increased awareness, and awareness often comes when something is no longer readily available. Many women find themselves trapped in a cycle where they continuously pour into a relationship without receiving the same level of recognition in return. They become the encourager, the listener, the supporter, the peacemaker, and the problem solver. They carry emotional burdens that were never meant to be theirs alone. Over time, these contributions become so consistent that they are treated as normal expectations rather than valuable gifts. The danger is that when people become accustomed to receiving something valuable without interruption, they can begin to assume it will always be there. They stop viewing it as a privilege and start viewing it as a guarantee. This is where familiarity becomes dangerous. It creates an illusion that what is present today will automatically remain tomorrow. A wise woman understands that her value does not increase because someone notices it, nor does it decrease because someone overlooks it. Her worth remains constant. The problem is not the absence of value. The problem is often the absence of perception. When a man sees you every day, hears your voice every day, receives your support every day, and benefits from your presence every day, he may gradually lose sight of how unique those contributions truly are. Not because they have become less valuable, but because they have become familiar. Familiarity has a way of turning extraordinary things into ordinary experiences. This principle can be observed throughout life. People often fail to appreciate peaceful environments until they experience chaos. They fail to appreciate loyal friends until betrayal occurs. They fail to appreciate opportunities until those opportunities disappear. Value frequently becomes clearer when comparison enters the picture. That is why separation often creates moments of reflection. When your presence is no longer filling every gap, reality begins speaking. The conversations that once brought comfort are no longer there. The encouragement that once strengthened difficult days is missing. The emotional stability that was quietly supporting the relationship is suddenly absent. At that point, many people begin noticing what they previously ignored. They realize that your patience was rare. They realize that your loyalty was uncommon. They realize that your support was not something that could be easily replaced. They realize that your presence contributed more to their happiness than they originally understood. This realization cannot always be taught through arguments or explanations. Sometimes people must experience the difference for themselves. No amount of convincing can replace the lessons that experience teaches. This is why constantly chasing recognition is exhausting and often ineffective. If someone cannot see your value while benefiting from it, explaining it repeatedly may not change their perspective. True appreciation is most powerful when it emerges from personal understanding rather than external pressure. The healthiest response is not to become bitter. It is not to seek revenge. It is not to make someone suffer. The healthiest response is to continue living with purpose and confidence. Continue developing your character. Continue pursuing your goals. Continue protecting your peace. Continue becoming the best version of yourself. When your life revolves around purpose instead of validation, you stop depending on other people to confirm your worth. You understand that appreciation is wonderful, but your identity cannot be built upon whether someone recognizes your value. The remarkable thing about genuine value is that it eventually reveals itself. People may overlook it for a season. They may take it for granted for a period of time. They may fail to recognize it while it is standing directly in front of them. But reality has a way of exposing truth. Sooner or later, comparisons emerge, experiences accumulate, perspective develops, and many people eventually discover that what they considered ordinary was actually extraordinary. That is why you should never diminish yourself to gain appreciation. Never sacrifice your dignity trying to force someone to recognize what they refuse to see. Your responsibility is not to convince people of your worth. Your responsibility is to live in a way that reflects it. The right person will eventually understand that loyalty is valuable, character is valuable, integrity is valuable, and genuine support is valuable. When that understanding arrives, they begin to see what familiarity once concealed. And that is one of life's greatest lessons. Sometimes people do not fully appreciate your presence until familiarity is broken and clarity takes its place. When clarity arrives, they finally recognize that what they treated as ordinary was something truly rare. One of the most powerful forces in human relationships is clarity, and clarity is often born through distance. Many people believe that understanding comes from constant conversation, constant presence, and constant interaction. While communication is important, there are certain truths that only reveal themselves when space enters the relationship. Distance has a unique way of removing distractions and allowing people to see things as they really are. When two people spend every day together, they can become so accustomed to one another that they stop noticing the value each person brings. The routine becomes normal, the sacrifices become expected, the support becomes assumed, the kindness becomes familiar. Over time, what was once appreciated can become overlooked simply because it is always there. Human nature often struggles to appreciate what is constantly available. This does not mean people are intentionally ungrateful. It simply means familiarity can sometimes cloud perception. When something becomes part of everyday life, people may stop examining its significance. They enjoy the benefits without consciously recognizing the source of those benefits. This is where distance becomes a teacher. When space is introduced into a relationship, whether through a breakup, separation, reduced communication, or simply a season of personal growth, people are forced to confront reality without the comfort they once relied upon. The absence creates a contrast. It allows them to compare life with that person to life without that person. Many men do not fully understand the impact a woman has had on their lives until she is no longer present every day. While she was there, her encouragement may have seemed ordinary, her loyalty may have seemed common, her patience may have appeared expected, her emotional support may have been taken for granted, but once she is absent, the environment changes. The conversations that brought peace are gone. The support during difficult moments is gone. The understanding that made challenges easier is gone. The encouragement that inspired confidence is gone. Suddenly, what was invisible becomes visible. Distance has a way of highlighting contributions that presence sometimes conceals. A man may discover that the emotional stability he enjoyed was not something he created himself. He may realize that much of the peace in his life came from the woman who stood beside him. He may begin to notice that relationships with other people do not carry the same depth, maturity, understanding, or consistency. This realization cannot always be taught through words. Many women spend years explaining their value. They communicate their feelings repeatedly. They express their needs. They describe the sacrifices they make. Yet sometimes those words fail to produce understanding. Why? Because some lessons are not learned through explanation. Some lessons are learned through experience. Experience is often the greatest educator. A person who has never experienced your absence may never fully understand your presence. This is why chasing understanding rarely works. You cannot force someone to appreciate what they are unwilling to examine. Appreciation is most powerful when it develops naturally through realization. Distance creates an opportunity for that realization. It removes emotional noise. It removes distractions. It removes dependency. It removes assumptions. What remains is truth. During periods of separation, people often begin reflecting on moments they once ignored. They replay conversations. They remember acts of kindness. They reconsider situations they previously misunderstood. They begin viewing the relationship from a different perspective. What once seemed ordinary suddenly appears extraordinary. What once seemed replaceable suddenly appears rare. What once seemed guaranteed suddenly appears precious. This process creates emotional clarity. Clarity is one of the greatest gifts distance can provide. Without clarity, people make decisions based on impulse, pride, convenience, or temporary emotions. With clarity, they begin to recognize deeper realities. They start distinguishing between attraction and commitment, between comfort and love, between convenience and genuine partnership. A mature man eventually understands that finding someone who genuinely supports his growth is not as common as he once believed. He begins to see that loyalty is valuable, emotional intelligence is valuable, patience is valuable, character is valuable. When these qualities are no longer present in his daily life, their importance becomes much easier to recognize. However, there is another important lesson in this principle. Distance does not only reveal truth to him, it also reveals truth to you. Many women discover through separation that they were carrying more of the relationship than they realized. They recognize how much effort they invested. They see how often they ignored their own needs. They understand how much emotional energy they were giving away. The space allows them to evaluate the relationship honestly. It helps them determine whether they were genuinely valued or merely available. It helps them distinguish between being loved and being needed. It helps them recognize whether the relationship was built on mutual respect or one-sided sacrifice. This kind of clarity is priceless. Sometimes distance brings people back together with greater appreciation, deeper understanding, and stronger commitment. Other times, distance reveals that the relationship was never as healthy as it appeared. In either case, truth is revealed, and truth is always valuable. Never fear seasons of distance. Never assume that absence automatically means failure. Sometimes distance is not destroying a connection. It is exposing its true foundation. What is real becomes stronger through clarity. What is false becomes exposed through clarity. The strongest relationships are not sustained by constant proximity alone. They are sustained by genuine value, mutual respect, and deep appreciation. If those qualities exist, distance often strengthens awareness of them, rather than diminishing them. That is why emotional clarity, born through distance, can become one of the most transformative experiences in a person's life. It allows both individuals to see beyond routine, beyond assumptions, and beyond temporary emotions. It allows them to finally recognize what truly matters, what truly lasts, and who truly made a difference in their lives. One of the most powerful truths a woman can learn is that her value does not increase because someone approves of her, and it does not decrease because someone overlooks her. Yet many women spend years seeking validation from men, believing that if they can just be a little more patient, a little more available, a little more understanding, or a little more accommodating, they will finally receive the appreciation they deserve. The problem with this mindset is that it places the measurement of their worth into someone else's hands. A woman who depends on validation will constantly adjust herself to fit the expectations of others. But a woman who understands her value remains grounded regardless of how she is treated. A high-value woman does not chase validation because she understands that validation is not the source of her identity. She knows who she is before she enters a relationship, and she remains secure in who she is, whether the relationship succeeds or fails. She does not need constant reassurance to believe she is worthy. She does not need endless compliments to feel beautiful. She does not need someone else's approval to know she deserves respect. Her confidence is built upon self-awareness, purpose, character, and personal growth, rather than the opinions of others. Many people confuse confidence with arrogance. They think a confident woman is someone who constantly talks about herself or tries to prove her superiority. True confidence is much quieter. It is the ability to walk away from situations that do not honor your worth. It is the ability to remain calm when others fail to recognize your value. It is the strength to continue moving forward without needing everyone to agree with your choices. A woman who chases validation often becomes trapped in a cycle of emotional exhaustion. She gives more than she receives. She sacrifices her standards to avoid rejection. She ignores red flags because she fears losing someone's attention. Instead of evaluating whether a relationship is healthy for her, she becomes consumed with trying to convince the other person to choose her. In doing so, she gradually loses sight of herself. This is why so many relationships become unbalanced. One person is investing their energy into building the relationship, while the other person simply enjoys the benefits without making a similar commitment. The more one side chases, the more the other side often relaxes. The more one side seeks approval, the more the other side becomes accustomed to being the center of attention. A high-value woman understands a simple principle. Affection should flow naturally, not be forced. Respect should be mutual, not negotiated. Commitment should be offered freely, not extracted through endless effort. She recognizes that genuine connection cannot be manufactured by chasing someone. Real love grows through mutual investment, mutual respect, and mutual appreciation. This does not mean she becomes cold, distant, or unavailable. It means she knows the difference between showing interest and abandoning her self-respect. She can express her feelings without losing her dignity. She can care deeply without becoming dependent. She can love wholeheartedly without making another person the center of her existence. One reason men often need absence to recognize a woman's value is because constant availability can sometimes hide her importance. When someone is always there, always forgiving, always understanding, and always making sacrifices, their contributions can become invisible. What was once appreciated becomes expected. What was once valued becomes assumed. But when that presence is no longer there, the reality of its significance becomes much clearer. The high-value woman does not create distance to manipulate anyone. She simply refuses to chase what is not pursuing her. She understands that relationships require effort from both sides. If she is the only one carrying the weight, something is fundamentally wrong. Rather than exhausting herself trying to force a connection, she allows space for the other person to reveal their true intentions. There is tremendous power in knowing that you do not have to convince someone of your worth. The right person will recognize qualities that others overlook. The right person will appreciate your loyalty, your wisdom, your kindness, your strength, and your character without needing constant reminders. They will not require endless persuasion to see what makes you valuable. When a woman stops chasing validation, something remarkable happens. Her focus shifts from being chosen to becoming her best self. She invests in her growth. She develops her talents. She strengthens her emotional health. She pursues her purpose. Instead of asking, "How can I make someone love me?" she begins asking, "How can I become the best version of myself?" That shift changes everything. People are naturally drawn to individuals who possess purpose and confidence. Not because they are perfect, but because they are secure. Security creates peace. Peace creates strength. Strength creates attraction. A woman who knows her value does not need to announce it. Her actions speak for her. Her standards speak for her. Her choices speak for her. And when she refuses to chase validation, she sends a powerful message to the world. I recognize my worth even if others do not. I will not lower my standards to gain temporary approval. I will not abandon my identity to keep someone's attention. I know who I am, and I will continue growing regardless of who chooses to stay or leave. That mindset is not only attractive, it is transformative. It protects her peace, preserves her dignity, and positions her for relationships built on respect rather than desperation. In the end, the woman who does not chase validation becomes the woman who is most deeply valued, because she understands a truth that many people spend years trying to learn. What is truly valuable never has to beg to be recognized. One of the most important truths to understand about human nature is that many men do not fully recognize the value of a woman while she is still giving everything to them. This is not always because they are cruel, selfish, or intentionally ungrateful. Often it is because people become accustomed to what is consistently available. When something valuable is always present, the mind can begin to treat it as ordinary. What was once appreciated becomes expected. What was once admired becomes familiar. And what becomes familiar is often overlooked. This is why experience is such a powerful teacher. A man may hear your words, receive your support, enjoy your loyalty, and benefit from your presence, yet still fail to understand the depth of what you bring into his life. He may believe that your kindness is common. He may assume that your patience can always be found somewhere else. He may think that your emotional support is something anyone could provide, but life has a way of testing those assumptions. When a woman who has been contributing value to a man's life is no longer there, a comparison begins to take place. Suddenly, the things he once ignored become noticeable. The peace she brought becomes obvious. The encouragement she offered becomes memorable. The stability she created becomes irreplaceable. The emotional safety she provided becomes difficult to find elsewhere. Many men learn through contrast. They understand light after experiencing darkness. They understand comfort after experiencing discomfort. They understand loyalty after encountering betrayal. They understand maturity after dealing with immaturity. In the same way, they often understand a woman's value after experiencing her absence. This does not mean every man will immediately realize what he lost. Some lessons take time. Growth is not always instant. Sometimes a person must go through several experiences before recognizing what was standing right in front of them all along. Life becomes the classroom and reality becomes the instructor. A woman must understand that it is not her responsibility to force this realization. Too many women exhaust themselves trying to convince someone of their worth. They explain, argue, prove, sacrifice, and overextend themselves in hopes that one day they will finally be appreciated. But true appreciation cannot be forced. It must come from understanding. And understanding often comes through experience. When a man no longer has access to your wisdom, your encouragement, your presence, and your support, he begins to see things from a different perspective. He starts remembering conversations he once dismissed. He starts recognizing sacrifices he once overlooked. He begins to understand that what seemed ordinary was actually extraordinary. This is why chasing someone who is uncertain about your value is rarely effective. The more you chase, the more you interrupt the lesson that life is trying to teach. You cannot make someone appreciate you by constantly reminding them of your importance. Real appreciation develops when they reach that conclusion themselves. There is also a deeper lesson here for women. While a man is learning through experience, you should be learning through growth. Do not spend your days waiting for someone to realize what they lost. Invest in your own development. Strengthen your mind. Build your confidence, pursue your purpose, expand your skills, deepen your character. The greatest response to being undervalued is not revenge, it is growth. A woman who continues growing during a season of absence becomes even more valuable than she was before. She refuses to allow disappointment to define her future. She understands that her worth was never dependent on another person's recognition. Her value exists independently of anyone's opinion. The remarkable thing is that when a man finally begins to understand what he lost, he often discovers that the woman he underestimated has become even stronger. She has developed greater confidence. She has gained wisdom. She has learned important lessons about herself. She has become more focused, more secure, and more aware of her own worth. This transformation changes everything. The dynamic is no longer based on desperation or pursuit. It is based on clarity. The woman understands her value, and the man understands what that value truly means. However, it is important to remember that not every man will learn the lesson. Some people remain blind to value no matter how much experience they accumulate. Some continue repeating the same mistakes because they refuse to reflect on their choices. But their inability to recognize greatness does not diminish greatness itself. Your worth is not determined by another person's understanding of it. A diamond remains valuable even when someone mistakes it for a stone. Likewise, a woman of character remains valuable even when someone fails to appreciate her. The lesson is simple, yet powerful. Many men understand loss through experience. They often recognize significance after absence creates perspective. They learn the value of loyalty after encountering disloyalty. They learn the value of peace after experiencing chaos. They learn the value of a remarkable woman after living without her presence. And when that realization finally arrives, it is often impossible to ignore. What was once taken for granted becomes unforgettable. What was once overlooked becomes deeply appreciated. What was once considered ordinary is finally recognized as rare. That is the power of experience, and that is why many men do not truly understand what they have until they are given the opportunity to discover what life feels like without it. One of the most misunderstood seasons in a relationship is the season of separation, distance, or absence. Many people immediately view it as a loss, a setback, or proof that something has gone wrong. Yet some of the greatest personal transformations happen during the moments when two people are no longer standing side by side every day. What appears to be a painful interruption can become a powerful opportunity for growth. In fact, one of the reasons absence often increases attraction is because it creates space for personal development. Growth changes how you think, how you carry yourself, how you make decisions, and ultimately how others perceive you. Many people make the mistake of putting their entire lives on hold when someone walks away or becomes distant. They spend countless hours wondering what happened, replaying conversations, analyzing every detail, and waiting for answers. While reflection can be valuable, obsession is destructive. The most productive response to absence is not to become consumed by it, but to use it as fuel for personal advancement. Growth begins when you stop asking, "How do I get them back?" and start asking, "How do I become better?" Those are two very different questions. One focuses on controlling another person. The other focuses on developing yourself. One creates dependence. The other creates strength. A person who uses absence as an opportunity for growth discovers something remarkable. They begin to realize that their future was never meant to depend entirely on another human being. Their dreams still matter. Their purpose still matters. Their goals still matter. Their identity remains intact. During separation, many people rediscover parts of themselves they neglected while trying to maintain a relationship. They return to passions they abandoned. They revisit goals they postponed. They strengthen friendships they ignored. They invest in learning, health, discipline, and personal excellence. As they do, something powerful happens. Their confidence begins to grow. Confidence built through personal achievement is different from confidence borrowed from someone's approval. Approval can disappear overnight. Genuine confidence remains because it is rooted in personal growth and accomplishment. When a woman begins improving herself emotionally, she becomes less reactive and more composed. She no longer allows every opinion to determine her mood. She develops emotional stability. She learns to manage disappointment without allowing it to define her. This emotional maturity becomes visible to everyone around her. When she grows intellectually, she becomes more insightful and more capable of making wise decisions. Her conversations gain depth. Her perspective expands. She begins seeing possibilities where she once saw limitations. Knowledge increases her confidence because she understands more about herself and the world around her. When she grows professionally, she develops independence. She becomes focused on creating value, building skills, and expanding opportunities. Her energy shifts from seeking validation to pursuing excellence. This creates a sense of purpose that is naturally attractive because purpose produces direction. When she grows spiritually, she develops inner peace. She becomes less controlled by fear and uncertainty. She learns to trust the process of life, even when she cannot see the outcome. This peace creates a powerful presence because people are naturally drawn to those who are secure within themselves. The fascinating thing about personal growth is that it changes your energy. People can sense the difference. They notice when someone has become stronger, wiser, and more confident. They notice when someone no longer operates from desperation. They notice when someone has learned to value themselves. Often, the person who walked away expects to find the same version of you months later. They expect to see someone waiting, hoping, and emotionally frozen in time. Instead, they encounter someone transformed. They see a person who continued moving forward. They see a person who used pain as motivation instead of allowing it to become an excuse. This transformation creates attraction because growth is attractive. Human beings are naturally drawn to progress. We admire people who overcome challenges. We respect individuals who rise after disappointment. We are inspired by those who refuse to let difficult seasons define their future. Growth also changes your standards. This is one of the most important benefits of personal development. As you evolve, you begin recognizing what you truly deserve. You stop settling for inconsistent behavior. You stop accepting relationships that drain your peace. You stop confusing attention with commitment and words with action. As your standards rise, your choices improve. You become more selective about who receives your time, energy, and trust. This selectiveness is not arrogance. It is wisdom developed through experience. Ironically, the very growth that occurs during absence often makes reconciliation healthier if it happens. Two people who have learned, matured, and developed individually can return with greater clarity and understanding. And if reconciliation never occurs, the growth still benefits you because it prepares you for a stronger future. The greatest victory is not making someone miss you. The greatest victory is becoming such a complete, confident, and purposeful person that your happiness no longer depends on whether someone returns. When you reach that point, you have gained something far more valuable than attention. You have gained yourself, and a person who has truly found themselves carries a level of strength, dignity, and attraction that no one can ignore. One of the most powerful truths about genuine love is that it survives space and time. Many people believe that love must be constantly reinforced through endless communication, continuous reassurance, and uninterrupted physical presence. While healthy communication and quality time are important, real love is tested not when two people are together, but when circumstances place distance between them. Anyone can claim affection when everything is convenient. The true measure of emotional connection is revealed when convenience disappears. There is a significant difference between attachment and love. Attachment often depends on access. It depends on routine, familiarity, and constant interaction. When those things are removed, attachment weakens because it was built upon dependency rather than genuine appreciation. Love, however, operates differently. Love is not sustained merely by proximity. It is sustained by value, respect, understanding, and deep emotional connection. When a relationship is built on these foundations, temporary absence does not destroy it. Instead, it reveals its strength. Think about the most valuable things in life. Their value does not decrease simply because they are out of sight for a period of time. A precious treasure remains precious even when it is stored away. A meaningful memory remains meaningful even when years have passed. In the same way, a truly remarkable person does not lose their significance simply because they are no longer physically present. Their impact remains, their influence remains, their contribution remains. Many women make the mistake of believing that if they step back, they will be forgotten. This fear causes them to hold on too tightly. They become anxious whenever communication slows down. They worry when a man becomes distant. They begin over-explaining, over-giving, and overextending themselves in an attempt to maintain the connection. Yet this behavior often creates the opposite result. When someone is constantly trying to secure a person's attention, they unintentionally communicate insecurity rather than confidence. A woman who understands her worth recognizes that genuine love does not require constant chasing. She understands that if a relationship has real substance, a period of distance will not erase it. In fact, distance often provides an opportunity for reflection. It allows both individuals to see the relationship from a clearer perspective. Without the distractions of daily interaction, people begin evaluating what truly mattered. A man may not fully appreciate the value of a woman while she is consistently present in his life. Human beings often become accustomed to blessings. They begin to see extraordinary things as ordinary simply because they experience them every day. But when that presence is removed, comparison begins. He notices that the peace she brought is difficult to find elsewhere. He notices that the encouragement she offered was rare. He notices that the loyalty, understanding, and support he received were not as common as he once assumed. This realization cannot be forced. It cannot be demanded. It must occur naturally. Experience becomes the teacher. Life becomes the classroom. Through interactions with others, through challenges, and through personal reflection, he begins to understand what was truly valuable. This is why emotional maturity is so important during seasons of separation. Rather than spending every moment wondering what the other person is thinking, focus on becoming stronger. Continue developing your purpose. Continue building your character. Continue investing in your growth. The healthiest response to absence is not obsession, it is progress. When two people genuinely care for one another, time often deepens appreciation rather than destroying it. The memories remain alive. The lessons remain significant. The impact remains visible. Even after months or years, a meaningful connection can still hold value because it was built on something deeper than temporary emotions. Of course, not every relationship survives distance. Not every connection withstands time. But there is wisdom in that reality as well. If a relationship collapses the moment circumstances become difficult, then the foundation was likely weaker than it appeared. Genuine love is resilient. It adapts. It endures challenges. It survives seasons of uncertainty. A mature person understands that love is not measured by how often someone is physically present. Love is measured by consistency of character, depth of commitment, and sincerity of intention. When those qualities exist, temporary separation becomes a test rather than a termination. It becomes an opportunity for both people to discover whether their connection is based on convenience or conviction. The most beautiful relationships are not those that have never experienced difficulty. They are the relationships that remain strong despite challenges. They are the relationships that endured periods of waiting, uncertainty, and distance, yet emerged with greater understanding and appreciation. Such relationships demonstrate that true love is not dependent on perfect circumstances. If someone truly values you, distance will not erase your significance from their heart. Time will not diminish your impact. Temporary absence may change the form of the relationship, but it cannot erase the value of what was genuine. Real love has a remarkable ability to survive what weaker emotions cannot. It survives misunderstandings, seasons of growth, changing circumstances, and periods of separation because it is rooted in something deeper than momentary feelings. The lesson is simple yet profound. Never be afraid of absence when a connection is real. What is authentic does not disappear simply because it is tested. Real love survives space and time because its foundation is not built on convenience. It is built on truth, value, respect, and a bond that continues to matter long after the noise of daily life has faded away. One of the most powerful truths about genuine relationships is that the right man does not simply come back because he feels lonely. He comes back because he has gained understanding. There is a significant difference between missing someone and recognizing their value. Loneliness can make a person seek company, but wisdom makes a person appreciate what they once had. This is why time and absence often become the greatest teachers in matters of the heart. Many people assume that love is proven during moments of togetherness. While togetherness certainly plays an important role, true understanding is often developed during separation. When everything is available, there is little motivation to examine its worth. But when something meaningful is no longer present, the mind begins to reflect. It begins to compare. It begins to evaluate. The things that once seemed ordinary suddenly appear extraordinary. A man may not fully understand the importance of a woman while she is constantly solving problems, offering support, giving encouragement, and bringing stability into his life. Her contributions may become part of his routine. He becomes accustomed to her presence. What was once appreciated can become expected. What was once celebrated can become overlooked. Then life changes. The conversations become less frequent. The support is no longer available. The comfort he once enjoyed is gone. Suddenly, he faces situations without the wisdom, patience, and strength that were once beside him. It is during these moments that reality begins to speak louder than emotions. He starts to notice what he had. He remembers the encouragement she gave when everyone else doubted him. He remembers the loyalty she demonstrated when circumstances became difficult. He remembers the peace she brought into situations that could have become chaotic. He remembers the sacrifices she made that he barely acknowledged at the time. What once seemed ordinary now appears rare. This realization does not happen because someone pressured him. It does not happen because someone convinced him. It happens because experience becomes his teacher. Life has a way of showing people the difference between what is common and what is valuable. Many individuals spend years searching for qualities they once had access to but failed to appreciate. They discover that genuine kindness is rare, emotional maturity is rare, loyalty is rare, consistency is rare, integrity is rare. When they encounter relationships lacking these qualities, they begin to understand the significance of what they lost. This is why a woman should never panic when distance enters a relationship. If the relationship was built on genuine value, absence will often reveal rather than destroy it. What is authentic does not disappear simply because there is space. In many cases, space exposes the truth. The right man eventually realizes that attraction alone cannot sustain a relationship. Beauty may capture attention, but character sustains commitment. Excitement may create interest, but trust creates security. Chemistry may begin a relationship, but wisdom and purpose help it endure. As he matures, his perspective changes. The qualities he once overlooked become the qualities he seeks most. The things he once took for granted become the things he struggles to find elsewhere. His priorities evolve because experience has educated him. When he returns, he does not return as the same person who left. At least he should not. A meaningful return is not merely about reappearing. It is about returning with greater understanding, deeper appreciation, and stronger commitment. It is about recognizing value that was previously ignored. It is about approaching the relationship with maturity rather than assumption. This is why personal growth during seasons of absence is so important. While one person is learning through reflection, the other should be developing through purpose. A woman should never place her life on hold while waiting for someone else's realization. Her responsibility is to continue growing, learning, building, and becoming the best version of herself. The remarkable thing about growth is that it increases confidence. It strengthens identity. It reminds a person that their worth does not depend on someone else's recognition. Whether another person returns or not, personal development remains valuable. Ironically, this independence often makes a person even more attractive. There is something powerful about someone who refuses to abandon their purpose because of disappointment. There is something inspiring about someone who continues moving forward despite uncertainty. The right man eventually notices this. He sees the strength, he sees the growth, he sees the maturity, he sees the value that was always there but is now impossible to ignore. And if he returns with genuine understanding, he returns knowing that relationships are not sustained by convenience. They are sustained by appreciation. They are sustained by respect. They are sustained by the recognition that some people bring extraordinary value into your life, and that value should never be treated casually. The greatest lesson is this: never chase recognition. Never beg someone to understand your worth. Continue becoming who you were created to be. If a man is truly the right one, time will not weaken his understanding. It will deepen it. Experience will teach him what words could not. And when that understanding finally arrives, he will no longer see you as an option among many. He will see you as someone truly exceptional, someone whose presence made his life better, and someone he is fortunate to have the opportunity to value properly.